Order. Questions to the Prime Minister. Anne Winterton.
Number one, sir.
Mr. Speaker, before listing my engagements, on behalf of all sides of this House and the leaders of all political parties, I think it's right that we should pause to pay respects, our full respects, to the members of our armed forces who have given their lives on behalf of our country in Afghanistan. This is a solemn moment for this House and our country. It is a day in which we put on record in the House of Commons our gratitude and our commemoration of the sacrifice made by 37 of our armed forces serving our country in Afghanistan. From the Royal Marines, Sergeant Lee Holtram, from the Light Dragoons, Trooper Philip Lawrence, from the 2nd Royal Tank Regiment, Trooper Brett Hall, from 5th Regiment Royal Artillery, Warrant Officer Sean Upton, from 40th Regiment Royal Artillery, Lance Bombardier Matt Hatton and Bombardier Craig Hobson, from 1st Battalion the Grenadier Guards, Guardsman Jamie James, from 1st Battalion the Coldstream Guards, Guardsman Chris King, Lance Corporal James Hill, from 3rd Battalion the Royal Regiment of Scotland, Private Kevin Elliott and Sergeant Gus Miller, from 2nd Battalion the Duke of Lancaster's Regiment, Kingsman Jason Dunn Bridgman, from the 2nd Battalion the Royal Regiment of Fusiliers, Fusilier Simon Annis, Fusilier Sean Bush, Fusilier Lewis Carter, Lance Corporal James Fullerton, Corporal Joseph Etchells, Sergeant Simon Valentine. From 3rd Battalion the Yorkshire Regiment, Private John Young. From 2nd Battalion the Mercian Regiment, Private Gavin Elliott, Private Jason Williams, Acting Sergeant Mike Lockett, MC. From the 2nd Battalion the Royal Welsh, Private Richard Hunt, Private James Prosser. From the Parachute Regiment, Private Kyle Adams, Lance Corporal Dale Hopkins, Corporal John Harrison, Corporal Kevin Mulligan. From 2nd Battalion the Rifles, Rifleman Arimin Aries Toji, Rifleman Daniel Wild, Acting Sergeant Stuart McGrath, Sergeant Paul McAleese and Captain Mark Hale. From 11th Explosive Ordnance Disposal Regiment, Royal Logistics Corps, Captain Daniel Shepherd. From the Royal Electrical and Mechanical Engineers, Craftsman Anthony Lombardi and Lance Corporal Richie Brandon. And from Number 34 Squadron, Royal Air Force Regiment, Acting Corporal Marching Wojtak. Nothing can erase the pain for their families. Nothing can be greater than the pride we take in their contribution to our country and our sadness at their loss. I know that the thoughts and prayers of the whole House are with the families and friends of all these brave men. Their lives live on in the influence they will have left behind on other people, and they will not be forgotten. Mr. Speaker, we should also pay tribute to all those who have been wounded and who face rehabilitation, and assure them that they will have our full support at all times. Mr. Speaker, this morning I had a meeting with ministerial colleagues and others, and I shall have further such meetings later today.
Anne Winterton.
All members will wish to associate themselves with the Prime Minister's expression of sympathy to the families and friends of those who have fallen in Afghanistan since the House last met. Mr. Speaker, when the Lisbon Treaty comes into force, the European Council will become a formal institution of the European Union. As the United Kingdom member of that institution, will the Prime Minister confirm that he is bound by its rules and is thus obliged to further the objectives of the European Union in preference to those of the United Kingdom?
Mr. Speaker, first of all, I want to thank her for her tribute also to those brave men who died in Afghanistan. And I hope that the message will go out today that all political parties, every member of this House, wants to send the sympathy and condolences to every family. As far as the European Union is concerned, we joined the European Union in the 1970s. We hold by our obligations to the European Union, but that does not prevent us representing the national sovereignty of this country.
Dr. Tony Wright.
Could I ask my right honourable friend which he thinks is more dangerous, politicians becoming generals or generals becoming politicians?
Mr. Speaker, I think I know what he's thinking about. Let me put on record my thanks to the Chief of the General Staff, Richard Dannett, for the work he did for our country.
David Cameron.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The list the Prime Minister has read out of those who gave their lives over this summer in the service of our country is a very sombre reminder of the incredible sacrifices that the armed forces make on our behalf. These 37 men have left parents, wives, partners, children, brothers and sisters. And these loved ones won't just feel the loss today or the day when their loved one fell. They'll feel it for the rest of their lives as they think about the lives that could have been lived. And I think, Mr. Speaker, we must be clear about what has happened in our country. 2 wars over 8 years have seen thousands of people serve, hundreds wounded, hundreds killed and many more wounded, and whole communities affected as they have celebrated the success of our armed forces but also mourned the losses. Now, I know the Prime Minister has looked at these issues before, but isn't it now time for a more fundamental re-examination of every aspect of the military covenant and everything we do for these brave men and women and for their families who wait for them at home?
First of all, I'm very pleased that he associates himself, as I knew he would, with the commemoration of those people who have died during the course of this summer. This has been a particularly difficult summer for our armed forces, but also for the families of those members of our armed forces and their worries about their loved ones who are serving in Afghanistan. I believe that what we have tried to do over these last few months is to make sure, first of all, that all military men and women on service in Afghanistan and in any place around the world are fully and properly equipped for the tasks that they've got to undertake. And I'm happy to share with the House, as I will in a statement a few minutes from now, the extra measures we are taking to protect our troops in Afghanistan, particularly against electronic devices that have been the cause of 80% of the deaths over the last few months. I also want to assure the House, and I'm very happy again to go into this in more detail when we have the statement of Afghanistan, that we stand by the military covenant with all military families in this country and all those who are serving members of our armed forces and former members of armed forces. And that's why we published a white paper only a few months ago, looking at the range of services from education and health, the possibility of jobs after members leave the armed forces, help that is given when people are on location in the different countries in which they serve. And I believe that that white paper is an indication, I think it had all-party support, of the determination of all of us to stand by our military. If there are further suggestions about what we can do, I am very happy to look at this. We have an in-service allowance. We have increased the facilities available to members' families for phone calls. We have done what we can to make sure that the pay of the armed forces rises faster than the pay of the rest of the community. We have done what we can at Selly Oak and at Headley Hall to make sure that we give the succour that we can to those people who have been injured. I believe that if you look at that record and if we build on that record, we'll be doing the right thing. But obviously I'm happy to listen both to members of the other side and to the select committees on what more we can do.
David Cameron.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister mentioned Selly Oak and Headley Court. And what we do there is remarkable. There's no doubt about that. And because of the advances in battlefield medicine, many people who previously would have died of their wounds are surviving. And that is obviously fortunate, though they have to live with those injuries for the rest of their lives. Soon the issue will become, how do we help them as they grow older? So-called recovery centres put forward by organisations like Help for Heroes are excellent proposals. There are some concerns that the government is a slightly slow-moving partner in this endeavour. And can the Prime